Who was more successful with their last album release? Kanye West or Drake? Now, don't bother looking it up because it has absolutely nothing to do with the numbers. In fact, Drake won before either of them even set foot in the studio. So stick around and I'll explain why in just a second. What's up guys, Justin here, and recently I was having a conversation with my buddy Hakeem. So shout out to Hakeem over at the Boogie Shack and Link Media Partners. Now Hakeem is a super knowledgeable guy when it comes to the music industry. He's been a part of it for decades and he's seen a lot happen. And when we were chatting a few weeks ago, he asked me the same question that I just asked you. Who is more successful with their last album release, Kanye West or Drake? And as I mentioned, it has nothing to do with the numbers. Drake won before either of them even set foot in the studio. So why is that? Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's because Drake owns his masters. When Drake finished recording his last album, he was the owner of that recording. When Kanye finished recording his last album, Island Def Jam, a subsidiary of Universal Music Group, was actually the owner of that recording. So the first lesson here, the first big takeaway is that you need to own your master recordings. And this is something that's become a lot more common in the music industry recently, that an artist can actually own their own master instead of a record label owning it. Now, I'll explain more on that in just a moment, but first, I want to explain how this idea has kind of changed my own perspective on whether artists should even ever consider signing to a label in the first place. Because the fact of the matter is that, yeah, a label can totally help further your music career. So my thinking before was kind of like, well, artists need to understand how the music industry works, how to get exposure, and how to build a fan base on their own so that when the time comes, they can make a choice as to whether or not they want to sign to a record label or stay independent. But now I'd actually take it a step further and say it's important for artists to be able to understand the music industry and build a fan base on their own so they can always stay independent, because it's no longer necessary to sign to labels. Because labels don't really serve the same role that they used to in the old music industry. Pre-internet, record labels were the gatekeepers. If you wanted to get distribution, you had to go through a label. If you wanted to get your physical music placed on shelves, you needed a label to get you that shelf space. And it was extremely difficult or even impossible to get your music placed on shelves without a record label. And you needed a label in order to get your music heard in the first place. You needed the help of a label to get your music played on radio or to get your music video played on MTV. You weren't going to be able to do that on your own as a completely independent artist. But the game's completely changed now. Now anyone can get distribution. Anyone can upload their music to Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, whatever. And anyone can use those same platforms along with social media and other tools to get their music heard. The radio is becoming less and less relevant, and I'm not even sure if they show music videos on MTV anymore because, let's be honest, who watches cable anyway? It's all about Netflix, Prime, Hulu, right? So my point being that now the landscape of the music industry is completely changed. There are new opportunities available for independent artists. Now the barriers to entry in the music industry have completely crumbled. It's no longer necessary to sell away your masters by signing to a label. Here's another interesting thing that Hakeem said about some of the most successful guys in the music industry right now, like DJ Khaled. These guys don't sign to labels, they sign deals with labels. It's possible to stay completely independent, but work with labels because labels still have a lot to offer. They can be tremendously helpful in your music career, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sign away ownership of your masters. You can still work with labels in a mutually beneficial way as an independent artist. And that's the difference between the situation that Drake is in and the situation that Kanye West is currently in. Drake is fully independent. He owns the music that he creates. And then he does business with labels and other contacts in the music industry to help him promote that music. Whereas Kanye doesn't own the music he creates. It's actually owned by the label that he signed to, Island Def Jam. And that label gets the bulk of the profits from sales, streams, licensing, and so on. And that's not uncommon though. It's not like Kanye got a terrible deal. Kanye's record deal isn't something unique. It's what a standard record deal used to look like for decades. But the music industry has changed a lot in the past few years, and those type of deals are becoming less and less common because artists now have more tools and more resources than ever, which allow them to stay independent. All right, so if what I've said so far and what I'm about to say to you resonates with you, be sure to hit that subscribe button because I've got some really knowledgeable guys that I'm going to introduce you to in the coming year that are going to be able to share some valuable insights into how all of this works and how you can make it work for you as an independent artist. There's no reason that you should need to sign away the ownership of your music any longer. In the old music industry, most artists could not afford to create and produce physical albums at scale without a label. Now you probably have the capability to create a final, fully mixed and mastered digital recording on the device that you're watching this on right now. In the old music industry, you couldn't get distribution without a label. Now, anyone can get nearly instant distribution through streaming platforms. In the old music industry, most artists could not afford to promote their music without a label. Now there are very low-cost tools and resources like social media that can allow any artist to create awareness for their music and start building a fan base without a label. Record labels are no longer a must-have. They're a nice-to-have, but they're no longer a must-have. Record labels still have a lot to offer artists, but it no longer requires that you give up ownership of your music to get the help of a label. You no longer need to sign away ownership of your music to labels. Now you can simply sign deals with labels, do business with labels. And that's the reason why Drake's last album release was more successful than Kanye's before they even set foot in the studio, because Drake owns his masters and Kanye doesn't. Because Drake does business with labels and Kanye is signed to a label. All right, so that wraps up for this video. If you found it interesting, enjoyable, informative, any of those things, be sure to like, comment, share, etc. There's a lot more videos like this one already here on the channel, so be sure to go check those out. And to be notified of future videos, please be sure to subscribe now if you aren't already. Go ahead and hit that notification bell as well, so you'll be notified as soon as new videos are released here on the channel. And if you'd like to receive email notifications about new videos and other information and resources to help you with your music career, you'll see a link down in the video description where you can get a free copy of 61 Ways to Promote Your Music. You'll also be added to my email list, so be sure to check that out. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.